Accessibility is important to us here, especially in our program in our district, because we value an inclusive mindset. And if we really want to foster that inclusivity and that mindset that we all belong, then we need to make sure that all of our environments are accessible for children of various ability levels. And so for our playground, we wanted to make sure that it was accessible for children that might have some motor challenges, might have some developmental delays, or might need some additional support in different areas, whether it's sensory or have different areas that can support all areas of their development. We are very fortunate in our district that we had the support of our school board and our community to really emphasize and place the importance and the investment in early childhood, specifically for an environment like this that is accessible for all children. So we had a good, healthy, robust budget to be able to work with. If we're looking at the entire playground that we have here, I would say the range would be about $350,000 to $400,000. And that would include all of the surfacing. So we have a variety of surfaces. We have the turf, we have the pour in place surface, and then we also have the real grass area. So when you're looking at surfacing, that all adds up. When you're looking at fencing to make sure that we have a safe environment, that also would be included in the price. Looking at the shades so that we can have days where we can be outside when it's hot. So the shades, and then just the variety of equipment for an inclusive and accessible environment, such as what we kind of wanted to design here. We wanted to make sure that we had a variety of equipment that would serve a lot of purposes. So we wanted to make sure we had lots of climbing equipment with different textures for climbing and walking and going up and down. We wanted to make sure that we had several slides and several different kinds of slides with tunnels or double slides so that two friends could maybe race down the slide. We also have an embankment slide. So not just, your run-of-the-mill slides, but we wanted to make sure we had a variety of those kinds of things. Also, we have some pieces that foster or kind of initiate that make-believe play. So we have houses, we have little storefronts, a gas station, just some of those things that would kind of lend themselves to incorporating that dramatic play or that turn-taking between friends or adults and children as well. And then also what's important is we have a space now that is just kind of an open-ended space where we can have a lot of loose parts or things that are movable, so that if we wanted to study balls, is what we're doing now, or having water play out so that we can, have different things that children can manipulate. That's really important too. So having some spaces like that. And then we also have a space kind of on the other end of the playground where it's a little more quiet and secluded, where it can be, children can explore books over there. They can just kind of sit next to each other and have some conversations. So some other strategically placed areas on the playground to kind of involve some of those learners that may just want to have that quiet time. When we were designing this playground, we were very mindful about the surface. So when we talk about accessibility, we didn't want to just think about the equipment or where we strategically place the equipment. We wanted to think about the surface as well. And so for us, it was important for us to have the turf. So we have kind of a green space, but we have the turf that would lend itself to more sensory experiences. We might have some children that might have some delayed gross motor skills, or might be early walkers, that are just kind of walking and exploring that way. So that way, if they need to have their socks and shoes off, they can explore the turf and have that sensory input right there on their feet. And then in terms of the pour-in-place surface, that kind of rubbery, cushiony feel under our big playground equipment, we wanted to make sure that all of our children felt safe and exploring. We do have some risk takers and some risky play that we want to promote that. So we want to make sure that if they are jumping from a high place, or if they've fallen, then it's going to be a safe place for them, and it's to mitigate any injuries. What was also important for us is, and with the help of our playground designer, just being able to make sure that between the surfaces that there was kind of a seamless entry between the two, so that if we do have children that might be in a stander or a walker or in a wheelchair or something, then they could seamlessly be able to access each area of the playground without having to, utilize a ramp or stairs or anything difficult for the adults or for the students to access. We were able to add sort of a green space off to the side of our playground that's a fenced green space with real grass. And we thought that was important too, for children to be able to explore the real grass and see the benefits of grounding. We all know about the research of grounding. And so we wanted to have that experience for them as well. We didn't want to take for granted that they get all of those sensory rich experiences at home. So we wanted to be able to provide that here at school. When we were exploring options for the design of our playground, we wanted to make sure that we incorporated and we were considerate of different sensory needs that our children might have. And so we actually consulted with our occupational therapist in the planning stages, and even just flipping through catalogs, we were looking through kind of what would be some pieces that would be conducive to maybe sensory seeking and maybe just low sensory level types of things. And so we enlisted our occupational therapist to look at maybe some musical pieces of equipment that would provide that loud and soft sounds, maybe some swinging and some of the spinning types of equipment that would be conducive for that type of sensory input. And then also being mindful of not everybody likes to be loud and spin and do all of the fun things. And so for them, we wanted to make sure that we had spaces available to them on the playground where they could be kind of just low sensory input, lower sound, reducing kind of that movement. So we have a couple of different areas, the safe place, which would be for anybody that would need that self-regulation support. And then we have kind of an area that's a little bit of a reading nook with some books and some netting available. So it's kind of a private place where they can just kind of go. We also have another sort of drive-through pergola type of a thing with some benches. And so a lot of times if we have staff members that know that children might need some of that quiet time, then they might direct them or join them in just some quiet area and maybe have some conversation. A lot of times that happens on our benches, or we have a tunnel that's like a big wood, almost like a carved out tree trunk. And sometimes friends will just kind of go in there because they have that space enclosed around them, and that it feels good for them during the time that they're out here. So in thinking about the design of this project, I was super fortunate to be able to be involved from the beginning. And a little bit about my background, I used to be a school social worker, so I kind of had that lens of inclusive play, building in those opportunities for social interaction, building in those sensory motor opportunities, and making sure that we have all of those things kind of captured on our play space. And so in doing that work ahead of time, I really just kind of leaned into a lot of our staff members too, our occupational therapist, our social worker, our speech pathologist, as we were preparing for this design, and really kind of just running it by them, kind of saying like, hey, we want to make sure that we have different sections of the playground that hit different needs. And honestly, I also had a young child at the time of my own. And so I was able to capture just the idea of what how a child would think. And so I often take that back to our staff as well, and just kind of get people thinking, what would it be like if you were a child on this playground? And what are some of the things that you could build into some of that natural play? But when it comes to just how we interact with on a daily basis with kids on the playground, we really had to do some work with our staff and just kind of our collective commitments in terms of what does it look like, does it sound like, and what are some of the opportunities that we really want to build in for students and for each other as adults working with students. So we do some work, together where we kind of came up with some collective, when you're on the playground and another adult is maybe off doing something that isn't interacting with child, how can we hold each other accountable? How can you build in some of those opportunities in your daily lesson plans during your gross motor time so that you're intentional about creating those opportunities during the play in that time? Thinking about our lesson plans and aligning them to the curriculum, we use creative curriculum. We also do a lot of project-based learning. And so we really want to be intentional about what we're creating for those experiences, so those meaningful interactive experiences during all parts of the day. But during the gross motor time, we really want to make sure that there's embedded pieces related to the curriculum or what the study would be at the time and how that can be incorporated during the gross motor play. And since we do have related service personnel that are coming out and providing those push-in itinerant services during gross motor play, then it's really important to have that collaborative planning time. We have professional learning communities that our related service professionals attend so that we can make sure that when we're building our common formative assessments, when we're looking at how that lesson plan aligns with with that curriculum study, that everybody's all on the same page, and with whatever perspective that they're working from or whatever area of expertise, then we can all be incorporating that together in the playground, in the gym, small gym, however that looks. We are fortunate that we don't just have a playground, we have a lot of outdoor space as well. So we have lots of trees and grass and a creek, so we're able to really incorporate any of the learning that's happening in the classroom outside.
I think it's important to interact with children and for educators to interact with children outside, because we're building upon what they are learning outside. We're also building upon what they're learning when we're doing things inside. So if we're working on counting, we can work on counting outside. If we're working on problem solving, we can do problem solving outside. So if they're playing a game with friends and they don't know who's first, we can work on problem solving skills. How I intentionally plan on my goals. So if I see that they need more writing, I might bring chalk outside, something that's a little more interesting. Maybe we'll paint with water on the sidewalk. If they have occupational or physical therapy, we'll do some of those goals outside too. It's just a little more fun.
We wanted to kind of highlight some of the opportunities on our playground that really look at some of that facilitated social interaction for our friends here. And this smaller playground structure is perfect for our friends as they're maybe transitioning from early intervention, maybe as a young 3-year-old. Everything that we had in mind when we designed this playground, we wanted to make sure that we were fully inclusive and we were able to really target a range of abilities and a range of developmental levels. So what's really special about this piece of equipment is that it's a little bit smaller than some of the bigger playground equipment on our playground. And there's a couple of features on here that are really, really special for us. One of the things that's kind of sets this piece of equipment apart is this Hot Wheel track. And so we just bring out normal Hot Wheels for students to play with. And this really facilitates some of that reciprocal social interaction, maybe with friends that don't necessarily want to be in another child's space, or maybe just have a preferred object that they carry with them all the time, and they like to see that repetitive back and forth play on a ramp or on a track. And so using that and incorporating it into the play space also encourages that social interaction, or just that ability to be present with other kids in the area. So really how this works sometimes is if we have a student that has that preferred object and they want to have that repetitive play, they can come up here with their Hot Wheel, they can watch it go down the track and all the way down to the end. And then maybe another friend might want to have a turn, and so they take turns and they watch it go back and forth. It also facilitates that wait time. And like I said, that social interaction between two friends, or just having another opportunity for students that might have some, and then sometimes it falls off. And when it falls off, then we problem solve and we go from there. Oftentimes, if that were to happen, then that's also a natural opportunity for us to work on self-regulation or to work on turn taking. And so it's a great use of a space that isn't traditional. When we were designing this, it was really hard to find opportunities like this already built in. So this was really exciting to have. In addition to, like I said, it's just a smaller space, so it's not quite as intimidating as large for little ones as they're turning 3 or if they have some developmental needs. Some of the other opportunities that we have built into our playground space are, we have the trike tracks. This is a double trike, so one person would be pedaling, the other person would be riding, and sometimes there might be 3 kids on here, one even standing on the back. But we have a couple of these really cool structures that are strategically placed by the trike track. This might just look like a little place for shade, or a little place for maybe a teacher or para to build in some conversation with kids, but it also doubles as a drive-through or whatever else they might come up with. So tricycles can come up, they can have a little math or numeracy interchange here, they can share items, they can do things back and forth for some more of that reciprocal play. So again, it's just kind of thinking through all those fun opportunities that we can build in for students and how we can incorporate that communication and reciprocal social interaction. One of the things that we ended up needing out on our playground was a safe place. And so we utilize conscious discipline throughout our curriculum. It's embedded throughout our day here at the Early Learning Center. And we have a safe place in each of our classrooms that has all of the tools and strategies that a child might need if they need to work through some big emotion or big upset and work through some of those times while they're at school. So we have some breathing strategies, we have some calming activities, we have the feeling buddies, some sensory items, a book. But what we found is that those big emotions or that big upset don't always just happen in the classroom. They could happen anywhere. And what great place on the playground to be able to work through some of that is, and to have a safe place here. So this is an area that we directly had to teach because it's an all-weather type of a material. It doesn't look the same as the safe places that we have in the classroom. So we really had to do some direct instruction to have children understand that this is the same type of work. We do the same type of work with breathing and working through those big emotions as we would do in the classroom. It just looks different. And so this is an integral part of our playground because there's lots of opportunity for conflict and lots of opportunity right here to work through that and work through those emotions using the tools and the strategies that they're familiar with from the classroom. So this is another opportunity for some turn taking. We have a couple of different swings here. They kind of look like tire swings, but they don't have space for any children to fall through. So they're very safe and low to the ground. So it encourages, some of that risky play and also encourages that turn taking and gets that some of the sensory input as well. Also, from a staff perspective, it's pretty easy to be able to sit and push and take turns here in the middle. And so it's a great way for us to incorporate all of those motor abilities, communication, and facilitating some of that requesting or asking to be pushed, and then also taking turns with friends. Just like in the classroom, we also want to incorporate some dramatic play opportunities. So the playground is a perfect opportunity to engage in that pretend play and see where they take it. So this is similar to our dramatic play area in a classroom. This can be a table with a couple of chairs. Friends can make food. They can serve each other. They can pretend and do whatever they like. So again, this is that smaller structure. So it kind of appeals to children that maybe have some gravitational insecurities, or they maybe just want to have a more intimate space. And then we also have some other opportunities for dramatic play in some of the other areas of the playground, but this is a great one.
A play invitation, people often think, what's a play invitation? Don't kids just play? Isn't that natural for children? And it is. And free play is absolutely essential. However, play invitations allow us to think about our curriculum, allow us to wander with children, and then move from their interest to create a play invitation, or sometimes you might hear it called a provocation. And so, for example, maybe I'm doing a unit on weather in November, December. We might come out and we might play in the leaves, put some leaves in a sensory bin. We might play in the snow. We might sled down the hill a little bit. We might, make different tracks. And so in that case, we're thinking about how are we setting that up for children? But instead of kind of a forced play, we model that. We ask children what they think. We invite them into the play experience with us versus saying, this is what we're doing at this given time in this given space. We're inviting children into that play experience. And one way to do that is to set up provocations. And what we're looking at now is a provocation table. You might look at it and you might think, that's just a lot of stuff put in one spot. That's not wrong. It's true. And so what we're thinking about is, how do we set things out? How do we catch the child's eye? How do we catch their interest so that they'll engage? And so I have a couple of items here today that we'll talk about. One of them is bubbles. Bubbles are fascinating for children, and I would argue adults. And you might notice with this particular set, you'll notice they're larger handled. There's different shapes at the top of those handles. And when we think about inclusive play, we want to make sure that all children can access the experience that they're looking for. And you'll notice we have a bubble squeezer here. So if that particular way to use bubbles is difficult to access, this one's more automatic. They can push the trigger, bubbles come out. We also have a bubble wand here. So if you look, right, they can kind of hold it out. So when I have a child that might have a motor disability, they are able to participate without a lot of motion, especially if there's a breeze. We also have here some chalk. And what you'll notice about the chalk bin is that there's a variety of ways that chalk can be handled. So as I'm growing my fine motor skills, as I'm thinking about how my body works to put writing onto a surface, eventually paper, I'm able to manipulate my hands in different ways. If I have a child with a disability that has grasping difficulties, this might be much easier, right, than grabbing a piece of chalk like this, for example. It might be a sensory difference where the feeling of the chalk doesn't jive with that child in the moment, and so then these handles can help with that experience. We also have some scarves here, and on a nice windy day, right, these are flowing, and they can spin with them, they can wrap them on things. So water play is very exciting for children. I would also argue that it's exciting for adults. We all kind of like that for the most part. And we sometimes think we have to have really special equipment for water play on the playground or sensory play. But as you notice, these are just kitchen tools that probably any parent or teacher has access to. And children have the ability to kind of scoop, pour together. If you want, you can even color your water. You can talk about some of those early math concepts, which cup has more, which cup has less. Can we make them equal? Let's look. You're going to take a look. Oh, can we look? Are those equal? So we can do some of those pieces. They might just want to feel the water in their hand. That might feel good in that particular moment. And so when we think about a provocation table, we're going back to that backwards design planning, thinking, what are my themes? What kind of questions have children been asking? And how do I nurture that in my outdoor play space? You will oftentimes have a variety of materials that seem like they don't fit together, and that means it fits. So I encourage you to think about, how do you create a provocation table, and how do you really nurture children through play invitations?
Integrative therapy is child-directed therapy within their natural environment. So in the early childhood setting, that would be either in the classroom or outside or in the gym, depending on where their gross motor play is occurring. And it just is using all of their goal areas that OTs are working on and using that within the classroom and following the teacher and the child's lead during that.
Integrated therapy allows young children to practice the skills they are learning in natural settings like classrooms and playgrounds. When skills are taught with daily routines instead of in isolation, they become more meaningful. Having an accessible playground allows support staff to interact with children in a relaxed and playful environment. When children are not limited by their access to equipment and materials, they can learn a variety of skills with their peers. Let's listen to why the playground is one of the best places to integrate therapy.
Outdoor experiences are my favorite because there's so many ways to build on a child's social and emotional, cognitive, fine motor, gross motor, sensory motor skill development when they are in the natural environment. And it allows that freedom of play and even more intrinsic motivation for them to engage in meaningful play that I can use their goal areas with that child-directed play. The playground is the best place to integrate the vestibular system, which is an essential component for children to be able to kind of understand where their bodies are in space and how gravity plays a role on their bodies. And the way that system gets activated is movement. And so when they have a change in head position, that increases the activation of that movement system.
We have heard an OT talk about the importance of integrated therapy. It is important to know that all services can be integrated into a child's day, whether it be on the playground or in a classroom.
Academic play is another kind of play that we can easily bring from the classroom to the playground. So when we're thinking about our language and literacy development, we can always bring that phonological awareness right outdoors. And sometimes that reduces our academic anxiety a little bit to be able to be outdoors in nature, but also connecting with our sounds and letters. And so here you see just a foam pad that has the letters on it. And we could do things like, please find the letter D, make the sound D, D, D. And they could use things like rocks. That's a natural component. We know that children's ability to feel natural components can bring a sense of calm, but it also allows us to have that marker, right? So that we can identify, does the child know the letter? Does the child know the sound? We have some different shapes. So, please find the letter that makes the sound Z. And they're looking for that letter Z. We have beanbags, so we could say, we could do it, they toss to the sound. So I could say, please find the letter A, A. And they have to toss it. If they miss it, right, they're just gonna grab it back. It's okay, no big deal. You can even do gross motor development where you're having them find the letters, right? Find the letter C, C, and they're jumping over. So you can think about what are those phonemic awareness, phonics, early literacy and language development skills that I can bring out to the playground and give children an opportunity to show what they know in a new way.
I love to have the families engage in outdoor play. Not that screens are bad, but if it's taking the place of the child's opportunity to play, explore, and be creative, I definitely want to provide them either with written strategies. I always encourage them that they go to the playground, go to our local libraries. They always have wonderful offerings in the summer, as well as just finding any green space and letting your child be able to explore freely, especially if they have a sibling, and just let their imagination run wild, as well as building their gross motor and fine motor strength, either through picking dandelions or digging in the dirt, playing in sand, or just using sidewalk chalk. And then I also give the families tip sheets that have 50 screen-free activities, as well as additional outdoor activities, going on nature walks, cloud watching, being a bug hunter, and different activities that the families can engage in with their child.
I think going to visit other playgrounds, I know when we were in the very beginning planning stages here, before I even kind of knew what the budget was, I thought, well, I'm going to dream big and go big and just kind of look at what would be the ideal wish list. And so I took my kids to different playgrounds around our area. I went to playground vendor websites and kind of looked at some of their modeled playgrounds that had been installed. A lot of the playground companies will have designated parts of their catalog or designated playgrounds where they're very proud of the equipment that lends itself to more inclusive play. So really just looking at that and doing some research on my own, looking at other playgrounds that had been established maybe with some grant money or for some fundraising to support individual students, but just kind of seeing what's already been done. And then, for example, the one playground piece that we have that's got the little Hot Wheel track, I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought it would lend itself to a lot of reciprocal social interaction with kids. And so I ended up just showing it to my kids, my boys at home, and I was like, what do you think? Do you think this would be great? And they thought that was really really neat. So really just kind of using your resources and doing your homework, and then just knowing your kids and knowing the population and how that fits with your mission and vision of your mindset of inclusivity. So making sure that you're kind of tapping into your resources and looking at all those different areas.
Some strategies I would offer other OTs is to be flexible, be creative, use your imagination, and also the best is just to go with the child-directed play and use your child's intrinsic motivation to work on modeling and imitating you, doing your treatment techniques. And this also is such a gift to be able to treat within the classroom or within the natural environment, because you're modeling and providing those strategies for the teacher as well as the classroom staff to allow that student to have multiple opportunities to work on these skills that you're working on in your treatment, and so that they can progress towards their IEP goals.
And strategies to improve your outdoor interactions would be just to go outside more. I think if you go outside more often, the children will be more relaxed. They'll enjoy themselves. They'll want to try new things. They'll become more confident climbing up the slide, wanting to explore the environment. You can go on nature walks. You can invite parents to come with you. If you give those ideas, maybe those opportunities will happen at home too. If you just follow the child's lead, you'll learn a lot from them, and they'll learn from you too.